We continue now at the top of Daf Chavdalad Amud Aleph in Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf 24a. The Mishnah is continuing to list cases of prohibited relationships and what happens in those relationships if you have a situation of Sotah, Unesina li Yisrael. Let's say you have a situation of a woman who's a Nesina and she's married to a Yisrael, Ubas Yisrael, or let's say it's a Jewish woman who's married Lamamzer Vilanesin. She's married to a Mamzer or to a Nesin. In those cases, lo shoso, so they do not drink in terms of Sotah, they don't drink from the bitter waters, velo notelos ksuba, and they don't collect their ksuba. And Rashi explains in Nesina, what is a Nesina min ha-givonim? That means she comes from the nation of the Givonim, va'asurin lavo b'Yisrael. It's also for them to marry into the community of Klal Yisrael, kedamrinan b'Yavamas, David gazar alein, like the Gemara in Yavamas says, that David made a gezerah in terms of marrying in terms of the Givonim marrying into the community. So again, the Mishnah said in this case, number one, lo shosos, they don't drink. The lo nemra parsha ela beru'uya lakaima, because the parsha of Sotah, it only speaks of a case where it's a situation of a marriage that is fit to be maintained. V'achi tanya b'sifri, that's what it says in the Bryce and the Sifri. Kisiste ishto beru'uya li'ishas hakosim medaber. We're talking about a situation where it's ru'uya li'ishas, where again the marriage is fit to be maintained. Prat la'almona l'kohen gadol v'chulu, that excludes the case of a widow married to a kohen gadol. That was the case mentioned on the previous summer in the Mishnah. Again, this whole list of cases over here. And furthermore, the Mishnah said v'lo notelas ksubas. Also, she doesn't collect her ksuba. V'af agav deshar almona l'kohen gadol. Now, even though in general, let's say you have a standard case of an almona l'kohen gadol. Let's say it's not a situation of Sotah. So in that case, lo kansur rabban and ksuba. So there, the rabban did not fine her, and they didn't say that she loses the ksuba. That's what we say in Meseches ksubas. Zu einla, but in this case she doesn't get it. Why? Because in this case she was warned and she went into seclusion with this particular man, and therefore she now becomes prohibited to him. That actually does happen. And even in a situation where, let's say, she would have been fit to him, and that's what happens over here. Therefore, she doesn't receive her ksuba, because again she's now prohibited to him because she went into the seclusion. She's certainly going to be no better off than a regular situation of a marriage that is not prohibited. So that's why in this case of Sotah, they will not collect their ksuba, but nevertheless they do not drink from the bitter waters. And the Mishnah continues, Ve'elu lo shosos v'lo notlus ksuba. In the following cases as well, they don't drink from the bitter waters and they don't collect their ksuba. Ha'omeres tameya ani, let's say she says, I was defiled. So again, in that case, she's not going to drink. She's already admitted that she's tameya, but she won't get her ksuba. Ve'shabo lo edim she tameya. Or let's say you have a situation where edim come, they testify that she was defiled. V'omeres eini shosa. Or let's say she says, I'm not going to drink. Again, in those situations, she's not going to drink and not going to collect her ksuba. But the Mishnah continues, Amar Bala Eini Mashka, let's say it's her husband who says, I'm not going to give her to drink. Or Vishabala Bola Baderach, let's say her husband has relations with her on the road. So in that situation, no los ksuba, they still will be able to collect the ksuba in those cases. However, Veloshosas, again, in those cases, they do not drink. And Rashi explains, Amar Bala Eini Mashka Vishabala Bola Baderach, again, if her husband says, I'm not going to give her to drink, or her husband has relations with her on the road, Shu Garam La, meaning he caused Shalotishta, he's causing that she can't drink. So in that case, no telas ksubasa, in that case she still collects her ksuba, because that's on account of the husband that she's not able to drink. And the Mishnah continues, Mesu ba'alei anat shelo shasu. Let's say their husbands die, her husband dies before she's able to drink. And Rashi says, Mesu ba'alei and shel kol sotos. We're talking about any situation of a sota. Hanistaros, and again, this is a sota that went into seclusion when she wasn't supposed to. Uruyos lishtos, and really she's supposed to drink from the waters. Below his spikul hashkos and v'chula, but there wasn't enough time. They didn't give her to drink, and then the husband died. So what happens in that situation? So that's a machlokas tanoim. Beis Shammai Omer, Beis Shammai say, no telos ksuba v'lo shosos. They collect the ksuba. She collects the ksuba and she doesn't drink. She can't drink because without the husband, not supposed to drink. Well, Beis Hillel Omer and Beis Hillel say, no, it's osho. So it's either they drink, o lo notlos ksubasan, or they are not able to collect their ksuba. And so therefore in this situation, since they're not able to drink, they don't have that option, so therefore they are not going to be able to collect the ksuba, unlike Beis Shammai who say that she is able to collect her ksuba. And Rashi explains, Beis Hillel Omer, o shosos o lo notlos ksuba kolomar, mitoch shelo shosos. What Beis Hillel means is, since she's not able to drink, everybody agrees she's not able to drink in this case, so since she's not able to, lo notlos ksuba, so she's not going to collect the ksuba. The whole machlokas is whether there's a collection of ksuba in this case. So the Gemara, Mefarish Pluksayon, the Gemara will explain what the machlokas is between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And the Mishnah continues, Mu'beres chaveru, meinekas chaveru. Let's say you have a situation of a woman who's pregnant from his friend, meaning she's pregnant from another another man, or she's nursing from his friend, she's nursing from another man. So in those cases, lo shosos v'lo not los ksuba, they don't drink, they don't collect ksuba. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. The Chachamim say, Yacholu la'afrishu la'achzira le'achar zman. He's able to separate from her, and he can remarry her later on. Therefore, it is considered a permissible marriage, and she's going to be able to drink. Rashi explains the case. Muberes chaveru shameis, meaning the case is the person's friend was married to her, and the friend died. V'hinicha muberes, and he left her. She was now pregnant, so she's now a pregnant widow. Umeinikor, let's say he left her, and she's nursing their child. So again, she's a woman who's a widow, and she's nursing a child from another man. O shagirsha, the same could be, let's say he didn't die, but he divorced her. V'hi muberes umeinika, and she's pregnant or she's nursing. So the halacha there is vasruach chachamim linase adshe havlad ben beis shanim. The halacha is the chachamim say she's not allowed to marry a different man until the child is 2 years old. Shekach zman yenikasu, that's the amount of time of nursing. V'holach zev v'nasa. Now this guy goes along and he marries her anyway while she's pregnant or while she's nursing. That's a prohibited marriage, similar to the cases at the top of the Yomid. V'kino la, and then he warns her about going into seclusion with another man. So in that case, lo shosa, so she doesn't drink. Sharei eina ru'uya lo l'kaima, because that's a marriage that's not really fit to be maintained. It's a prohibited marriage. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. But the Chachamim, they don't view it as a prohibited marriage. Why? Because yachlu la'afrisha, because he could always separate from her at chav daled chodesh until the 24 months passes. Well, achzir, and then he can marry her. Hilgach ru'uya l'ishas karina bey. Therefore, this is considered a marriage that is fit to be maintained, even though right now at the moment you can't maintain such a marriage. But this is a marriage that eventually can be a kosher marriage, and therefore that's how the Chachamim view this marriage. And the Mishnah continues, Eilinus or Zakena, let's say you have a woman who's an Eilinus, Rashi will explain, or Zakena, she's elderly, V'she'ena ru'uya leileit, she's not able to have children. So those cases as well, lo notlos ksuba v'lo shosos, they don't collect ksuba, and they do not drink from the waters. And Rashi says, Eilinus, what's an Eilinus? Duchranisa, de lo yolda, it means a woman who's not able to give birth. Shemimei imo nivris kach, means the way she was created, from creation, she was created in a way where she doesn't have all the signs, she never gets the signs of maturity. Ve'en lo simani ishi, she doesn't have the signs of a woman. Lo dadim, she doesn't have breasts. V'lo sarah, she doesn't have the hairs. V'kol ava, she has a thick voice. So such a woman is not able to have a child. V'she'ena ru'uya leileit, or just in general, let's say you have an elderly woman who can't have a child, or a woman who can't have a child. Why? Sheshasas kosi karn, she drank something which makes it that she's not able to have children. So those cases also v'asuros l'kaimo. Those are cases where the marriage is not allowed to be maintained. L'mi she'ein lo bona, meaning someone who doesn't have children, he has a mitzvah to have children. He can't marry this woman. Sharin itztavu Yisrael al period v'ribya, because Klal Yisrael is commanded in terms of period v'ribya, in terms of having children. So therefore, this also is considered to be a marriage that really cannot be maintained, and that's why lo notelos ksuba v'lo shosas. That's why they don't drink from the bitter waters. Rabbi Eliezer, but Rabbi Eliezer says no, it's not true, because yachal hulisa isha acheres, he's able to marry a different woman. V'lifros v'lirbos heimena, and he'll be able to have children from that other woman, and therefore there's really nothing wrong with this marriage. He can just take another woman in terms of the fulfillment of that mitzvah. And the Mishnah continues, Ushar kol anashim, and other women, o shosos, o lo notelos ksuba. Either they drink in general, if you have a situation of sota, either they drink from the waters and prove their innocence, otherwise they cannot collect their ksuba. And the Mishnah continues, Eishes kohen, let's say you have the wife of a kohen who's a sota, shosa, then she can drink from the waters, umuteres labala, and she's going to be permitted to her husband. Eishes saris, let's say you have the wife of a saris is a man that cannot have children. Shosa, again, she also drinks as well. And Rashi explains, Eishes Kohen shosum v'teres lebaldem nimtzis nakiya. Again, the Eishes Kohen, if she drinks from the waters, and it turns out she's innocent, she becomes permitted to her husband. Uva Gemara parach pshita. The Gemara is going to ask, isn't that obvious? And Eishes Saris, let's say the wife of a Saris, could go into Nestaris la'achar shenasa. The case over here is he became a Saris after they got married. To kid mashchivas ba'alabol. In other words, he was with his wife before the adulterer. So in that case as well, shosa, she drinks from the waters. Uva Gemara parach pshita. And the Gemara is going to ask on this as well, isn't it obvious? And the Mishnah continues, Al Yedei Kol HaRayus Mekanin, in terms of all prohibited relationships, the husband is allowed to warn his wife against the seclusion in those relationships. Chutz min HaKatan, except he can't warn her to stay away from a katan, a minor, u'mimisha eino ish, or from somebody who is not considered a man. And Rashi says, Al Yedei Kol HaRayos Mekanin Imkino Lo Me'avia. For example, let's say he warns her not to go into seclusion with her father, or Me'acher, from her brother, U'me'achem Mikol HaRayos Shebetorah, any of the Arayos in the Torah of an Isra, and she goes into seclusion, Have a Kinuya of Kinuy, that's considered a good warning. V'naseres Olav, she becomes prohibitive, V'shos, and she drinks from the waters. U'v'gemara Parach Pshita, the Gemara will ask, isn't that obvious? Chutz min HaKatan, except he can't warn in terms of a katan, a minor, D'chsiv V'shachav, Ish Osa, because the pasuk uses the word Ish. U'mimisha eino ish, or anyone who's not classified as an ish. Over Gemara Mefarish Lan, the Gemara will explain what the Mishnah means by this line. And the Mishnah continues, Ve'elu shebezin mekanin lahen. The following cases, Bezin actually issues the warning on behalf of the husband because the husband is not capable of issuing the warning. Mishan escharish bala, let's say you have a woman whose husband became a deaf mute, or nishtat, or he became a shot, he became an imbecile. Osha yachavash bevesu asurna, let's say he's imprisoned. So in those cases, the Bezin can warn because the husband is not able to. But the Mishnah explains, Lola hashkosa amru. Now this warning is not in order to give her to drink, it's only the husband that's able to give her to drink. It's just to disqualify her from receiving the ksuba. Rabbi Yossi says, no, afla hashkosa. It could even be to give her to drink. Meaning when her husband comes out from the prison, then they will give her to drink, because then the husband will be present. And Rashi says, Ve'elu shebezin mekanin lohen, imroin osamet misnagos bepritzas. The point is, let's say the bezin sees that the woman is conducting herself in a manner that's pritzas. So again, the Mishnah said, Lo lahashkosa amru, this warning is not for the purposes of giving her a drink. Heim lo yeshkua, they can't give her a drink. The bo'inan vehevio ishas ishto, because you have to fulfill the pasuk that the husband brings the wife. Ubala nami lo yashkena bekino, and now the husband actually can't give her a drink either through this warning, l'chashayirtza de bo'inan vekine vehevio, because he's the one that has to give the warning, and then he brings her to drink. But Rabbi Yossi disagrees, and he says, Lo boy vikina vehevi. It doesn't have to be that the same husband who's bringing her to drink also gave her the warning. He can bring her to drink even if it was the Bezdin that gave her the warning. And the Gemara says, Mishtahu de lo shasi, in the cases in the Mishnah of Arusa and Shomeres Yavam, so they don't drink from the waters, Hakina mekanila, but the warning is going to be an effective warning. And Rashi says, Hakinoi mekanila leyasarala, meaning let's say a situation of an Arusa or a Shomeres Yavam, they're given the warning not to go into seclusion. That warning is able to create a prohibition that she's prohibited to him if she does go into seclusion with that individual. And we see that from the Mishnah, Midiktani lo not lo ksuba, because the Mishnah says that she's not able to collect the ksuba, again indicating that the warning is considered an effective warning. And the Gemara says again, Hakina mekanilo, he's able to warn him. How do we know that's the case? How do we know it's an effective warning? The Tanu Rabbanan, because the rabbi is taught, Daber el bnei Yisrael via Marta. It says in the pasuk, Daber el bnei Yisrael via Marta. We understand that means lerabos arusa v'shomeres yavam lekinoi. That includes an arusa and a shomeres yavam in terms of the halachas of kinoi. And Rashi says, Hachi Garsin in the proper text is Daber el bnei Yisrael via Marta alehem lerabos arusa v'shomeres yavam lekinoi v'lo goras ish ish. Don't have the gears of ish ish. The lidrasha acharina tarshina leilakaman. That's actually used for a different drasha later on. El ribuya mi via Marta alehem. The inclusion is from the phrase via Marta alehem. V'achinami amar lakaman v'pirkin via Marta ribuya, who we're going to say later on in our perek that the word via Marta, that phrase, is considered to be an inclusion. So in any case, it's learned out from that phrase. The point is that the warning is an effective warning by the Arusa and the Shomeres Yavam. And the Gemara continues, Umasnis and money. Now, according to this, who does our Mishnah follow? Rabbi Yonasan here. Our Mishnah is following Rabbi Yonasan. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Tachas Ishech, the pasuk says, while you were married to your husband, Prat la Arusa, so that comes to exclude a woman who's an Arusa because she's not really in a marriage to her husband yet. Yochol Shani Motzi Af Shomeres Yavam. Now, I might think that you even exclude a Shomeres Yavam. Maybe that's also not considered Tachas Ishech. Talmud Lomer Ishish, the pasuk says Ish Ish. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. In other words, Rabbi Yoshia only excludes an Arusa, and he does not exclude a Shomeres Yavam. And our mission is going to be not like Rabbi Yoshia, but like Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Yonasan says, Tachas Ishech, the pasuk says Tachas Ishech, Prat la Shomeres Yavam. So he says, first of all, Tachas Ishech, that excludes the Shomeres Yavam. She's less considered married at that point in time. Otzi Shomeres Yavam velo Otzi es Arusa. Now, I might think that I should exclude Shomeres Yavam and not exclude Arusa. Talmud Lomer, so the pasuk says, Asher tista isha tachas isha. So again, it says that she strays from her husband, and that pasuk prat la arusa, that pasuk comes to say to exclude an arusa as well. And so again, according to Rabbi Yonasan, it emerges that both Shomeres Yavam and arusa, they're excluded by Sotah from drinking from the waters. And the Gemara explains the positions of Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yoshia. Mara limole arusa. Now, one of them says an arusa is actually considered a stronger marriage because, again, there was a machlokas here besides for the general machlokas over here in terms of whether Shomeres Yavam or whether arusa is excluded, but there also seems to be a machlokas whether Tachas Ishech initially excludes arusa or does it initially exclude a Shomeres Yavam. And so what's the machlokas over there? So the Gemara is explaining. Mara limole arusa. One says an arusa is actually considered the stronger kind of marriage. That actually would be considered considered tachas ishech, the kiddushay didei, because first of all, he did a kiddushin there. In the case of an arusa, there is an actual kiddushin between him and her. V'soglan al yado, not only is it a kiddushin, it's an effective enough kiddushin, there can be skila if she's with another man. Umara lima le shomer siyavam, but the other one says, no, shomer siyavam is actually more considered tachas ishech, that's more of an isha, so it's more of a marriage. To lo michsra masira l'chuppah, because in that situation, you're not lacking masira l'chuppah. The halacha by shomer siyavam is immediately when there's going to be an act of relations, so that's going to be considered a full marriage. And Rashi explains, Mara lima le arusa, one considers an arusa more of an isha. That's Rabbi Yonasan chashiva le arusa isha gemura tzvei shomeres yavam. He says arusa is more of an isha than a shomeres yavam. The kiddushay didei shalei de kiddushay atzma bala, because that was from his kiddushin. It's not something that's coming from his brother. V'soklan al yadu, and there's even going to be skilim zinsa if she should commit znus and the skelas b'shvilo. That kiddushin would create a skila. The lo michzer masir l'chuppah, but the other one says no. Shomeres yavam is not missing chuppah. What that means is the nickness liyavam b'bia graded. So all you need is an act of bia, and that creates a full kinyan for the yavam. That's a marriage. Ve'afilu b'znus, even if the act of bia is not for the sake of any marriage, it's just an act of znus, that's enough. Leos ke'ishta l'chol davar, she becomes like his wife in all matters. Kedetanan b'yavamus, ma'asin l'lekam nebirka, like it says in the Mishnah Yavamus, and we're going to bring it later on in the parak. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yonasan, hai ish my avid le. Now Rabbi Yonasan, what does he do with ish? Because again, Rabbi Yoshia used ish to include shomeres yavam. That's what he said. I might think to exclude shomeres yavam. Talmud lomar ish divrei Rabbi Yoshia. That's what Rabbi Yoshia said. So what does Rabbi Yonasan do with ish? And the Gemara answers, mi baile, he needs it for the following: the rabos eishes cheresh ve'eshes shota ve'eshes. It comes to include the wife of a cheresh, a deaf mute, or the wife of a shota, or the wife of. And we'll see Rashi over here. Rashi says, the rabos eishes cheresh shota shebezin mekanin lahen. What it means to say is that includes in these cases where the husband is not capable of issuing the warning, so the bezin is able to warn on their behalf. Ubraisi b'shili pirkin. This is a brisa at the end of the parak, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Dalid Amud Beis.